Today we're going to just go over some of the stuff that we've been up to this year. Haven't posted much on YouTube, so I just want to give a big update right here. So strap in, get ready, it's going to be a wild ride. I usually start my morning by going down here and taking care of our rabbits. So let's check these out. The mommy here who just had some babies. They're all snoozing it up. We have about 75 acres of pasture of really good hay. So all the hay that we use for our animals and in the gardens, comes right from this property. In the springtime, when you're doing transplants, you want to do them in the hoop house. But in the summertime, when there's less rain and it's hotter, we just put them out underneath shade trees. These trays over here were clones that I just threw on the ground. This is some white bee balm that we're trying to propagate out, that I propagated out like about a month and a half ago. So success rate on that, looks about 50%. If you look at this chocolate mint right here, you can tell the success rate is 100%. So a lot of like those culinary mints, like pineapple mint and spearmint, chocolate mint, spreaders in your garden too. So a lot of people say put them in containers. Obviously that means they're going to clone real easy too. And I want to walk around the 1 acre perennial herb garden with you guys and show you how much progress we've made. Look at this clump right here. So this is kind of a perfect example of how I want this 1 acre perennial herb garden to be. It's anise hyssop. I really love this plant. We dry out a lot of it. I'm up to 5 pounds of dried processed material already this year from what we've cut in our garden. We collect seeds in the fall once these dry out, and then the seeds come out real easy. And then we use the sifters and things like that to really clean the seeds. This is that southern mountain mint over there that we collected seeds in our pasture line for, and it's got this really amazing eucalyptus flavor to it. Wow. Tons of eucalyptol in there. I have the chemical eucalyptol in my barn that I've bought for perfumery. Georgia calamint. Can't taste anything from that eucalyptus right now. So this is a lemon mint. It's a Monarda, which is bee balm. Rudbeckia. There's a bit of yarrow down here as well. This was the first kind of real big perennial bed that I did out here when I first got here, and it's mainly a big row of mountain mint, the Virginia mountain mint. So it's very dry with these long stems. It grows like the other mountain mint here and similar to some of the bee balms, but these leaves are very dry even when they're growing, and there's a ton of menthol to them. Different from spearmint, where you have some other like green and sweet flavors, some roundness to it. This is just very sharp mint. So this is what really excites me though, is when the mountain mint starts to bloom like that, because that means that we can go ahead and start picking this and hanging it up to dry. All of that mass right there, that makes the best tea, is in these flower buds right here. Because if you think about it, when you strip this down of all the leaves, that's how much leaf matter you get. It goes into the tea as well. This added bonus of these really hardy flower buds on top of there. And that goes into the tea. It makes amazing, amazing tea. It's really good for your mouth. I have a bit of mugwort on this line, but we're hacking that back a little bit, letting most of that dry out. In the barn, we'll cut that and hang it to dry. So earlier this year I bought some persimmon trees from our county extension office. Bought some apples and some pomegranate and some goji berry, some blueberries, raspberries and blackberries and strawberries. And we're going to be cloning out those raspberries and blackberries and spreading them around as well. I've got Mexican tarragon right here, which is a super hardy French tarragon alternative for the southeast. It's bulletproof for your walk-in cooler, okay? I'm talking about, you take this right here, you put it in a little plastic bag, you put it in your fridge, it's going to look the exact same a month later. All right, if you're a chef in Atlanta, I highly suggest that you pick this up, or if you're a bartender, also buy this. All right, if you buy it by the pound, you get longer stems, right? So if you buy it by the pound, it comes in bunches like this. So then as a bartender, it affords you the opportunity to break off longer garnishes you can really stick into your glasses. On ourapothecary.com, if you scroll to the bottom for chef ordering, you'll be able to access all of our different inventory. So if you buy the baby cuttings, you'll get a quart full of these. Now the flavor on this, it's similar to French tarragon. It's a bit juicier though, and it's more like candy. Mexican tarragon. Now all of this is were clones that we did last summer, and we planted them out. They're one of the later ones to come back in the spring. So you got to do a pretty heavy mulch on there throughout the winter time, and then let it decompose into the spring, and then they start popping back up pretty late, like around in April. You'll start seeing them again. But I think I got hit with some tractor or something like that, so there was a kind of a row that didn't come back this spring, and so I replaced that with some anise hyssop. Bartenders get this by the pound because for syrups it's incredible. It's extremely sweet and it's got that beautiful anise flavor. And then also you've got the opportunity to do long-stemmed garnishes. Now for storage on this in your restaurant, it's fine to leave this in a bucket of water in your walk-in cooler. You can take it out every day for service, leave it on the counter in a cup of water, and it's going to last you a week or two. This spearmint was a clone from last year, and we've been doing cut-ins off of this for sale by the pound to chefs and bartenders. So it's a little low right now. This is one of the bare root apple trees that we put out this year. Japanese beetles have eaten a little bit of it. A lemon balm here that we already took big bunches off of and hung them up to dry. It was up like this. We cut it down, we bunch it, we hang it to dry, and then we're waiting for a second growth now, which will happen. We've got about 15 pounds of lemon balm bagged up already from this first cutting that we did, and this is just one of the small sections of lemon balm. We've got hundreds of feet of lemon balm throughout this garden. So this right here is that Southern Mountain Mint with the seeds that I collected on our pasture line. So we started these seeds in trays, seed trays this year, and they took a very long time to germinate, about a month. And they finally came up with, maybe 25% success rate. And then we're getting this little section going right here in the garden. And then from this, we're also taking cuttings to do some clones. We're gonna try to spread this out and do a whole nother row right here. So I really want high density on this herb garden, right? I don't want to do too much maintenance, so I want the plants that I like to cover everything, and then just have little walkways that are either mulched or mowed down. And here's a rather large catnip. This is my first time growing it because I just didn't really have a need for it, but this thing can get like a giant bush. I just didn't know that. So the plan is for have these fruit trees grow up and then have all the herbs kind of growing around it, and every step that you take, it's going to smell wonderful. You're walking through the garden, you're brushing up against mints and bergamot and lemon balms. And then next to this fig tree, I planted about 25 asparagus crowns. Just been letting them grow, and then we'll see how they do next year. We're going to do a very light mulch. And this is cat mint, which has a really unique flavor that I love. It's a little bitter for some people's taste, but it's also one of the first things to bloom in the springtime for like the really aromatic herbs that I grow. And the blooms are nice and long, and purple, and you could buy those by the quart on my website when they're in season, but they really only, that first springtime is when they just look the best. And here's another apple tree that we planted bare root. We had about a 90% success rate on all of our apple trees that were bare root that we planted this year. Life's good. Life is good. Here's little blackberries that we planted this year, which were just grown from canes that you stick in the ground when they're dormant. This is the champagne raspberry. We have a section here of lemon mint coming back It's looking a little brown right now, so we'll probably cut it for distillation. We've done a bunch of cuttings on this already this year to hang up to dry for teas, and probably only like maybe 3 pounds or 4 pounds, maybe 5 at the most. But we've also done some distillation on this. It's a really solid plant to grow. When you direct seed it, not very good luck, so I like to do transplants, but then it is a perennial, so it comes back every year. So this was planted last year. Here's another persimmon tree that I've got planted just right in the middle of the garden. And persimmon trees, they take about 10 to 15 years really to produce heavy crops, but they produce for 60 years after that. And it's a big wildlife plant, but also we scoop them up and eat them all the time. It makes these little fruits that are the American persimmons, make little fruits that are real small and real juicy. There's sections of coriander throughout here too that have just been reseeding itself, so it'll come back real heavy every spring, less heavy in the fall. But I pick about half of those coriander seeds, and the rest I leave. I use a chamomile rake to get the seeds off, which works pretty well, and then I leave everything else there. These hyssop here, and some more lemon balm. There's a goji berry planted right here in the middle of it. We want to collect seeds from out here and kind of really grow a lot of native plants that are aromatic too. And we've been fortunate to find a good amount of species out here. So this is a white bee balm, and we collected seeds on that last fall, and it's starting to bloom right here. Now this is a really exciting plant because it's antibacterial, and it can be used in many different ways. So even if you dry this out, for instance, like in a bundle, burn that in your home, the smoke is actually antibacterial. If you distill this, make essential oils and hydrosols, you can use that hydrosol as an all-purpose cleaning spray, and you spray it all around your house. This right here is a little bit of rose mint, which is a really exciting agastache. And this is Hyssop originalis, so this is the European hyssop. It's got some antibacterial and some real nice cleansing properties. It's OG hyssop. It was used, biblical times for bathing. You would take a bunch of sprigs of this and put it in your bathtub as it warmed up and kind of basically steep it and just bathe in the tea. And then next to it we have a bit of pennyroyal, which is a really cool plant. Really unique flavor and aroma. And then down at the end here is a bit of summer savory. Now this pennyroyal grows like crazy, so you get a big cutting off of that at least once a year. And I like to make smudge sticks out of that or dry it out for tea. Another persimmon tree that we planted out here. I just hacked back this mugwort that was growing next to it. This right here is a sawtooth sunflower. It's a native plant, and it grows up, and it's a fall blooming, big yellow blooms on there. You got to cut it back pretty low at the end of the year if you don't want it to spread a lot, but otherwise it will send out a lot of suckers. And in the early springtime you could dig up those suckers really easily, replant them, and make yourself a hedge of these perennial sunflowers. We're going to pick some mountain mint to hang up to dry to make some teas as well. You can get one good cutting on this a year. We'll see if we can get another one. We did an early cutting before blooms to check essential oil production on that. It was pretty all right. I think we got 20 mils out of maybe 2.5 or 3 pounds of herbs. Hey. Here's digging up a little potatoes today. See what we got so far. We're removing the hay mulch and just pulling them out of the ground. We're not using any shovels or anything. This dirt's loose enough, and potatoes are basically right on top underneath that hay. So we've got our parsley here that was planted last year, and it's going to flower now. We've sold off quite a bit to chefs, and now we're just going to let it go to seed, and we're going to collect some of that seed. We're going to check to see, if it's got an aromatic usage, and if not, then we'll just plant it in the garden again. So behind me, you'll see quite a bit of bronze fennel that's going to flower now. You know, bronze fennel's I love to grow bronze fennel because it's a real hardy perennial, and you know I sell the foliage on it quite a lot throughout the year. And then as it goes to flower, I sell those flowers, and then we're going to collect the seed and use it for making some perfumery ingredients, but also selling it fresh, you know, fresh dried seeds, basically seeds that haven't been sitting around for a long time, but have more oils and stuff in them. So I think that'll be a real treat for my chef customers to be able to use. There's different colorful monardas that we planted this year, and these are going to come back every year as well, you know, bigger and better. Now on all the inside shoulders of these bronze fennel beds, I've got lemon balm, and we cut an absolute ton of lemon balm throughout here this year, and now it's kind of the bronze fennel's turn to grow up. And you know, we might get a second cutting out of that lemon balm depending on how much rain we get. On all the edges on this garden, I'm trying to plant little mini gardens up front, or kind of, you know, focus on like the landscaping of the perennials on a lot of these front of these beds. So we've got scabiosa kind of planted on a few of these, and then behind here we've got wormwood bed, and then the coriander that self-seeds, and then behind that is the viola pansies that self-seed. Got a little too hot for them now, but you know, every spring and fall, you'll get more of those pansies popping back up. And we've got salad burnet down here, and then marjoram. This is what the salad burnet looks like now. And it's got all this crap on top of it, right? So we're actually gonna come through here and trim all this out and let this green growth come back through a bit better. Now, if I sold a quart of it now, I can still harvest off of it, because you can see we could just pull those right off and kind of look around. Then we could, you know, move this stuff around. But in order for it to really get growing better again for the fall, we're gonna have to cut that back just a little bit. And then kind of down here, you know, we've historically been planting some annuals here for the last couple of seasons. Right now there's a little bit of peppers and some basils down here still. But you know, every you know, time we flip a bed, I'm trying to take it away and return it as perennial, so that we can really tighten in this whole 1 acre exhibit garden and make it truly a 1 acre herb perennial garden. We've got some lemon mint and some echinacea and some rudbeckia. The Indian nights or something. This one right here. Now down here we've got a nice bed of oregano that's going to flower right now. Oregano and marjoram look real similar when they're growing, but marjoram has more of those pink flowers. Oregano, that I've seen at least, has more of the white. As far as flavor goes, the marjoram is more sweeter and the oregano is more spicy. I've got a few rosemaries down here too, some other variety. You know, rosemary grows real slow, but by the time it takes off in a few years, you know, you end up with a really big bush. Now right here we've got carrot flower, which is edible kind of at this stage. It's real nice. At this stage it's kind of past that. But we're going to collect seeds off of that because we grow a lot of carrots. And this one just kind of got missed when we were harvesting, and I put a bunch of hay mulch down, and this kind of came up through it. So we're letting that go. You know, in the future we may grow some carrot flowers if that's of interest to anyone, and sell them kind of by the piece or by the quart like we do on our website, our-apothecary.com. And, you know, as trees you know, drop in here, seeds drop in here into this perennial herb garden that I'm starting, I'm basically leaving them. So this is a sumac, and the red berries that it produces eventually are edible and make kind of like a really tangy tea. And you can also just suck on those like little sour Skittles in a way. Something really cool to do with these marigolds is you can make a tea out of them and then make a marigold jelly, which is really a bright, you know, kind of yellowish orange color. And it's got that super floral, tangy flavor to it. When we take out a bed and we're finished pulling from it, a lot of times I'll just mulch it down with about 8 inches of hay. And we're just gonna kind of let that sit there and rot for a while. And then as I get, you know, potted plants, if I transplant stuff up and pot them up, you know, then I could really easily scrape away a little bit of that hay and then plant into it. Alternatively, I could pull all that hay back, scrape off any of the weeds that have grown, plant into it, and then once those transplants grow up a little bit, then take that hay and kind of sprinkle it back onto that bed. Now right here we've got a little bed of pennyroyal. These were from clones. And so, you know, next year it's going to fill out real nicely and we'll have a bunch of pennyroyal to pick from. Really obsessed with all the herbs and the mints and the aromas and all the little subtle differences on them. So, you know, we've already had pineapple mint for a while and chocolate mint, but this I've got here is I've added a bit of strawberry mint, which to me is similar into the pineapple mint, but it's not as sharp with kind of like that gassy diesel, and it's more fruity and softer and sweeter, you know, kind of how a strawberry compared to a pineapple is. And this is our first year growing these tangerine gem marigolds. They make these little miniature flowers, but they don't have as much of the sharp flavor as the bigger orange ones. Now they are still quite flavorful, but it doesn't leave you with some of that stained taste in your mouth. And then at first it really hits you with like that orange essence, tangerine. So another thing that we're growing for the first time this year is eucalyptus. You know, we're going to come through and trim this out and sell it once it starts to really go to flower, kind of like in bunches, if it's going to overwinter. So I've seen some eucalyptus trees in Atlanta, and I just don't know if it's going to work out here. I'm really interested in planting more trees this year. So, you know, we've already talked about the persimmons and the apples. We got the pomegranate out there, but this one is a red bud, and I got these from the county extension office. There's a kind of like a nursery row of them, so as they get bigger, you know, we could pull them out bare root again and then move them around to a different spot. But you know, it's real cool if you look at the zigzag formation on there, the way that it grows. And then that eventually puts out those red flowers, which can be used in bouquets, or you can pick them off and use them as some garnishes. Now we're on our 13-acre field that I've been tasked with turning into an agricultural center. And you know, last year we had about 3/4 acre semicircle of sunflowers. But this year I started making these beds that have really large grassy walkways between them. So let's go walk around and I'll show you some of what I've got on my new garden beds. We've got beefsteak tomatoes, big beef, planted in these beds. And I haven't really weeded them at all. We've just been putting down more and more hay mulch. We've also basically gotten zero rain. You know, so we've been getting some fruits. We got a little bit of rain today. But overall, you know, it's been low input, but also low reward on this so far this year, just as a matter of, it's our first year in this field, plus there's no irrigation and we've had very little water. When we take a look at this stuff, it's not bad. You'll notice there's a bit of sun hemp growing in these beds. It's a cover crop that I use out here, and it's a forage that's really favored by the deer. And so I plant a bit of that. Some of those seeds kind of escaped me and got into these beds, which I kind of left thinking, hey, maybe the deer will come in and eat those before our crops. But they haven't really touched anything over here in this field. So we've been pulling them out here and there and just letting them, you know, chop and drop style. Or maybe not even chopping them, just pulling them up and dropping them. But they're really easy to come up out of the ground. There's almost no root to them. Alright, so you'll notice that I've got really large grassy walkways between these beds of squash. I've got some winter squash over here and some summer squash over there. You know, I've been selling the fresh squash at the farmer's market, but also we've been selling a lot of squash blossoms to the chefs. And you know, what I really like about these grassy walkways is it really affords us the ability to take our vehicles through here and then kind of pick and just make it a lot easier so you don't have to carry stuff as far. It's a lot of grass. So even on a riding lawnmower where you're throwing the grass in a single direction, you can get a few passes here and really throw a lot of this grass onto the growing beds, kind of as a mulch. So that's what we did when we first direct seeded these squash, is that, you know, we threw a lot of the grass on top of it through the mower, but also before that I scythed this by hand while it was really tall and laid down the long straws, and then after that cleaned it up with the mower with more of the fine mulched grass clippings. Now, you know, kind of the long-term plan on some of this too is that you can run your chicken tractors through these beds. So we're fertilizing this grass and then we're always folding that grass back onto the beds, so that the chicken manure and stuff doesn't ever really touch our growing beds. We're mainly growing grass and using the grass as a fertilizer and a mulch. You know, at the end of the day, when you're full-time farming, you got to look at the sunset, you got to give it to God and say, you know, we did what we can today. It's the best we can do. We can try again tomorrow. Sometimes you got to say, I can try again next year.